So my goal is to eventually submit my gaming room to Setup Wars, but in hopes of getting Edgar's seal of approval, I know I need that special wow factor that'll leave people speechless, and I think I have just the idea. Kicking things off, I have here the brand new Libernovo Omni, and this chair is competing directly with Herman Miller's high-end Embody, but at half the price. And make sure to stay tuned after the big final reveal, since I'll share my overall thoughts on this chair after having it for over a month now as my daily driver. Now, finding the perfect LED strip was probably the hardest part of this project. I first thought about using a regular SK6812 strip that has 60 LEDs per meter, but trying to attach a diffuser channel to the chair would look horrible. Then I thought about trying some higher density 144 LED per meter strips with no diffuser, however I didn't like the idea of being able to see the actual diodes. I contemplated using some cob LEDs like these, but besides them not being individually addressable, I thought the bare strip would look too busy and stick out in a bad way. That's when I found these 5-volt, individually addressable, 160 LED per meter cob lights that checked every box. The entire surface area is the light strip. It's so small that I'm pretty sure it could end up being mistaken as just part of the chair's design, and since the LEDs are much tinier than normal diodes, I'll be able to run these for long periods of time just using a simple battery pack. Now, because the entire front will be lit, all the copper pads for connecting wires are underneath, and even though this strip is extremely narrow, you actually do get some decent real estate for connecting your own. So the first place that I'll be trying to light up are the 5 legs of the chair. I'll take the strip and figure out how much I need on each and then make the cut. And what's nice about these individually addressable lights is that they do have cut points every ½ inch, so you really can customize these to the precise length you need. Now, like most custom work, you'll more than likely end up soldering, and to make everything blend in as best as possible, I'll be using some 22 gauge white silicone wires. I also highly recommend cutting these longer than you think you'll need, since you can always shorten them later. So these are a little more challenging than your traditional strips to work with since everything is smaller. I'll go over some close-ups of what I'm doing to get a better feel for this step. First, I'll strip back the wires that I just cut and give them a good twist, and I'll do this for all 3. Next, I'll be tinning the wires, which means I'll apply solder to them like I'm doing here. Then I'll cut them down to size to fit better on our strip. Now, on our strip, I'll cut the connector that it comes with off so I can attach my own wires. And again, these pads are on the back, and to get to them, you'll need to peel back the sticky 3M tape. So in case you're wondering, I'm using some high quality leaded solder with a rosin core, and I've never needed to add flux for stuff like this. But if you're using lead-free solder, then you'll almost always need to use flux. I'll leave a link to the stuff I'm using in the description. Just make sure to use a fume extractor and wash your hands with soap and water when you're done. Now, I did put a little too much on the pad, so I'll clean the tip and touch it to the solder, and that will remove just enough to where I want them. And finally, attaching the wires is super easy. Touch the tin wire to the solder on the pad, press down with the hot iron, and they'll melt together. Remove the heat and hold in place for a second, and you're done. Here's how it looks from the back, and then in the front we have a nice clean end result. Now, when you're using the same colored wires, I highly recommend marking your voltage and ground to make it easier when the time comes to connect everything together. And since we have the 5 legs on the chair, I repeated the process we just went over 4 more times. Moving on to the controller, and I'll be using the small but mighty Mag WLED. This supports 5 or 12 volt LEDs via USB-C power delivery, and it'll be perfect for this project. First, I'll remove the JST connector that it comes with, and then I'll take an 18 gauge silicone wire and cut 3 small pieces from it. Go ahead and strip those back, and I'll insert those wires instead back into the openings. And like I did before, I'll mark these the same way so I know what's my voltage and ground. Next, I'll then strip back all 3 of those wires. Now, my main goal is to keep this as minimal as possible, so instead of using 5-slot WAGOs, I'm going to see if I can get away with using an inline connector. I'll use a total of 3, one for our voltage, data, and ground. So to first test if this will even work, I'll be stripping back and then twisting the 5 voltage lines together from our 5 LED strips, then inserting all of them into the inline WAGO. I'll do the same thing for the ground and then for the data. This way, all the lights will get the voltage and ground they need, but because they're all connected to the same data line, every strip should be doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, which for this project is what I want. Moving on to power, I went out and bought a few different options just in case some worked better than others. For this, you're basically wanting to make sure it's USB-C compatible because we can plug that directly into the Mag WLED controller to power the lights. For a quick test, I'll try lining everything up in a row so it'll be easier to confirm that they're doing the same thing. Go ahead and plug in one of the battery packs, and after setting up WLED, you can see that the lights are working like they're supposed to, and I don't have to do any troubleshooting. I then went on and tested every battery pack that I picked up, and they all worked flawlessly with the Meg controller. So if anyone out there is wondering about the easiest way to set up small portable light shows, it can't get much simpler than this. Moving on, it's time to get these attached to the chair, and I'll be putting one on each leg right down the middle and running all the wires towards the back where everything will get connected. Now this is where the fun begins, because we somehow have to find a way to get all the wires connected back to the Wagos, find a place to stick the Meg WLED, and then attach the power pack all to the frame. And honestly, there's no special tricks or secrets that'll make this all disappear, so it's all about making the wires look as neat as possible, using clips and sticky tape to secure everything in place, and doing the best you can to fit everything together in the least amount of space as possible. So because I'll need to remove the battery pack to recharge it, I'll use some double-sided sticky tape for this part. Then I can simply run a short USB-C cable from the Meg to the power, and just like that, we have the leg portion of our build complete. And just like I hoped, when I turn this part away from the camera, it completely disappears from sight. I'm also going to be running 2 of the same LED strips that are cut longer up the back spine area of the chair. I soldered my own wires to the strip just like I did for the ones on the legs, and I'll begin sticking these on going up. And the key here is to make sure that they're symmetrical on both sides to get the best results. From here, it's just the same process of using some clips and finding the best spot and position for another power supply and Meg WLED controller. Now right here, I'm again splitting the voltage data and ground on these 2 strips, but when you twist the wires together, they are small enough to fit into the controller's opening, so I won't have to use the Wagos for this part. And for power, it actually worked out pretty nice. There's an opening underneath that the larger flat power supply can partially slide into, which I secured with some double-sided sticky tape. I'll attach the Meg to the power pack, and we have about as clean of a setup as you can possibly get without destroying any of the chair structure. So from here on out, I'll play some of the final results, but make sure to stay and watch after if you're in the market for a new chair, since this is one that absolutely needs to be on your radar.
It's been a long time, yeah. It's been a long time, yeah. You and me used to be. You and me used to be.
So I'll kick things off by saying I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall and 200 pounds, and really the only criticism I've seen online about this chair is that the seat's not large enough for tall people. This here is their 48 centimeter version, but they also offer a 42 centimeter length, and this fits me like a glove. And just in case you think it's the baggy pants, I'll pull them tight so you can see where my legs are. Now to me, this does feel like the perfect size seat, but feel free to disagree with me in the comments based on what you're seeing here. So after using this now for about a month, I'll go over a few of the features that stand out, starting with the backrest, because no matter how you move, the entire section's able to pivot right along with you, so it literally feels like it's glued to your back. This next feature is something that once you experience it, you'll never want to go back to anything else. Watch this area right here as I recline back, and how the frame is able to shrink inside itself so that everything stays connected to you in the same spots that it was when you're upright. And furthermore, watch the armrest, because again, as you go back, these also slide back with you, so they're in a more natural spot for you when you're reclined. Now, this chair has an electric lumbar support that lets you position the backrest to what feels best, like I'm doing here. But they're also marketing this as having massage capabilities, and I think if they were smart, they would rebrand and instead call it a vertebrae stretch. Because when you hear the word massage and chair, this is probably what your mind goes to, but that's not what this is. What it's actually doing is arching your lower back, which opens up your vertebrae and gives you this incredible stretch that you simply couldn't duplicate without a motor. So if anyone says they would rather not have electrical components on a chair, just know that you would absolutely be losing this incredible feature. So you really can't talk about the Libernovo without bringing up the headrest, because hands down, it's the most plush and comfortable headrest I've ever experienced. And the first time you try this out for yourself, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But this does bring me to one area that I have a suggestion for them on, and I know everyone is different, and some people I'm sure do prefer the more traditional armrest firmness, but I would love to see them have an option to get the armrest padded in the same material they use for the headrest. I personally think most people would opt for that option, but that's just my opinion. So Libernovo was able to raise over $10 million for this chair, and I'm not one bit surprised. This isn't some flash in a pan or a crazy marketing success story. They've truly created an incredible product, and after using it for over a month, it's going to be nearly impossible for a different company to get me to switch to something else. But with the success of this launch, I'm sure other companies are paying close attention and will try duplicating some of these features. But until then, this is as good as it gets. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I hope you have a blessed day.